Okay, you tell me, am I the crazy one here? I'm genuinely asking because my world has tilted off its axis and I can't make sense of anything anymore. I just spent 2 weeks doing what any rational, intelligent person would do. I gathered facts, I cross-referenced data, I made a whole damn PowerPoint presentation with charts and footnotes. I proved with irrefutable, stone-cold evidence that we were about to pour our entire life savings into a financial black hole disguised as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I saved us. I probably saved our entire future from turning into a cautionary tale you read about on some depressing finance blog. And Alistair? He packed a duffel bag and moved into his brother's spare room, a room that smells faintly of old pizza and teenage angst. Just like that, no screaming match, no throwing plates, none of the dramatic fireworks you see in movies. Just a silence so heavy it felt like it was sucking all the air out of the house, leaving a vacuum in its place. His only explanation, delivered with this hollow, vacant look in his eyes that I'll never forget, was, "You were right, Monica, you won." And then he just left. It wasn't a goddamn game. It wasn't a debate club championship. It was our life, our money, the future we were supposed to be building together. I did the responsible thing, the smart thing, the thing any partner should do. How is this the prize for being right? How does saving your family from utter ruin end with you sitting alone in the dark, staring at the empty space where his car used to be, wondering what the hell just happened? It doesn't make any sense. It's like I solved the equation perfectly but got the wrong answer. Alistair and I weren't supposed to be like this. Our whole thing, the bedrock of our 10-year marriage, was this idea that we were a unit. Team Miller, he used to call it, cheesy as it sounds. He'd say it whenever we tackled anything, from assembling a nightmarish IKEA bookshelf to navigating a tense family dinner. I remember one time we decided to host Thanksgiving for his entire sprawling, chaotic family. He was in charge of the vibe, the music, the drinks, making sure every estranged cousin felt welcome. I was mission control, the turkey timing, the seating chart logistics, the military precision deployment of side dishes. It was chaos, but it was our chaos. At the end of the night, covered in gravy and exhaustion, he'd kissed me and whispered, "See, Team Miller, unbeatable." He was the heart of the operation, all passion and gut feelings, and I was the head, the strategist. It worked. He'd come up with these big, beautiful, sometimes crazy ideas, and I'd be the one to figure out the budgets and practical steps to make them real. He trusted my judgment implicitly, and I adored his boundless optimism. This latest dream was the biggest yet, a small, sun-drenched villa in a coastal town in Portugal. His old college buddy, Julian, was co-developing a small community there. It was pre-construction, offered at a price that seemed too good to be true, and Julian's pitch was intoxicating. Alistair was completely swept away. He would paint these vivid pictures for me, his voice soft with longing. He wasn't talking about return on investment. He was talking about the scent of orange blossoms after the rain, about learning to grill sardines from the local fishermen, about a little cafe where we'd have our morning coffee. It was a life, not a property, and at the center of this dream was Julian. To Alistair, Julian wasn't just a friend, he was practically a brother. This was the guy who talked him off a ledge after his father passed, the best man at our wedding. Their history was a tapestry of unwavering loyalty. So when Julian presented this opportunity, it wasn't a sales pitch. In Alistair's eyes, it was a sacred invitation into a shared, golden future. To question the project was to question the very foundation of that 30-year friendship. "This is it, Moan," he'd said, grabbing my hands, his voice buzzing with an energy I hadn't seen in years. "This is the move that sets us up for life. Julian's holding a spot for us, it's our chance." And God, I wanted to believe it too. For a moment, I let myself get carried away on the wave of his enthusiasm. My initial research wasn't meant to be an attack. It was supposed to be my contribution to Team Miller, the boring but necessary part I always played. At first, my deep dive into the Algarve Sunshine Estates was just me being me. It's how my brain works. I build spreadsheets for vacation planning. I read user manuals before plugging in a new toaster. So naturally, I wasn't going to let our entire nest egg fly across the Atlantic without a thorough vetting. It started innocently enough. I requested the full prospectus, not just the glossy brochure. I started looking into the parent company Julian had partnered with, a firm based in Luxembourg with a vaguely worded mission statement and a website that looked like it was designed in 2005. I spent a Saturday afternoon mapping the proposed development site on Google Earth, trying to reconcile the idyllic artist renderings of infinity pools and lush gardens with the scrubby, undeveloped patch of land I was actually looking at. Alistair was patient at first. Find anything interesting, Sherlock? He'd joke, peering over my shoulder at the screen filled with zoning regulations in Portuguese. He saw it as me doing my Monica thing, the meticulous groundwork that always made his grand plans a reality. But when my casual research turned into late nights, and my questions became more specific and pointed, his patience began to fray. Honey, you're overthinking this. It's Julian, he wouldn't steer us wrong. That's when something inside me shifted. The phrase, you're overthinking this, is like a key turning in a lock for me. It feels dismissive, like I'm being patted on the head for being a silly, anxious woman whose concerns are adorable but ultimately irrelevant. And the unwavering faith in Julian, as if friendship was a substitute for due diligence, started to grate on me like nails on a chalkboard. The goalpost moved. It was no longer about ensuring a safe investment for us. It became about proving that my caution was justified and his blind faith was reckless. It became about me versus him. My research became covert. I started working after he went to bed, the glow of my laptop the only light in the dark living room. My browser history became a rabbit hole of international property law, currency exchange rate projections, and background checks on the developers. I wasn't just gathering data anymore, I was building a case. I took screenshots of Julian's increasingly vague answers to my email queries, highlighting the noncommittal language. I found online forums where other foreign investors discussed the very same Luxembourg-based firm, using words like unresponsive and delay tactics. One user described a similar project in Spain that had stalled for 3 years. The chill that went down my spine was part fear, part exhilaration. I created a timeline, a meticulous document cross-referencing Julian's promises with Alistair's excited texts to me. Julian says the permits are all approved, one text read from a month ago. A quick search on the local municipality's website after a frustrating hour with Google Translate showed they were, in fact, still under review due to an environmental impact concern. Every discrepancy I found felt like a small, triumphant victory, another piece of ammunition for the battle I was preparing to wage. I was no longer a partner. I was a prosecutor, and my husband, in his trusting naivety, was about to be the star witness for the opposition. I was going to save him from his own foolishness, and I was going to make damn sure he knew it. The confrontation, or as I saw it then, the presentation, happened on a Saturday morning. The air was still and quiet, the way it is before the world really wakes up. I had asked him the night before if we could set aside some time to go over the final details of the Portugal investment. He agreed easily, probably thinking we were going to be discussing bank transfers and signing documents. He came downstairs in his favorite faded university sweatshirt, coffee mug in hand, and a relaxed smile on his face. He was completely unsuspecting. That more than anything should have been my first clue that I was on the wrong path. Okay, have a seat, I said, my voice a little too crisp, a little too formal for a weekend morning. I had already set up my laptop at the dining room table, connected to the TV we rarely used. It felt like a boardroom. He sat, a flicker of confusion in his eyes as I clicked the first slide into view. The title in a bold sans serif font that screamed corporate read, Project Algarve Sunshine Estates, a risk assessment. For the next 45 minutes, I delivered a monologue. It wasn't a conversation, it was a verdict. I was the judge, jury, and executioner of his dream. I walked him through every slide with the cold precision of a corporate analyst tearing apart a flawed business plan. Here was the slide on the Shell Corporation in Luxembourg, complete with a diagram of its opaque ownership structure that I had painstakingly pieced together. Here was the slide with the Google Earth image, side by side with the brochure's rendering, the discrepancy stark and undeniable. I even used a pointer tool to highlight the lack of any actual construction vehicles on the satellite imagery. I showed him the timeline I'd created, the one that pitted his hopeful texts against documented facts. On May 12th, I narrated, my voice steady. You texted me, Julian says the permits are all approved. However, I clicked again, bringing up a screenshot from the municipal website. Timestamped that same day, the public record shows the application was, in fact, still pending due to an environmental impact concern. I brought up the screenshots of Julian's emails, my cursor circling his evasive phrases in red. Notice the use of should be finalized here, not has been finalized. I pointed out, my tone dripping with the satisfaction of a lawyer revealing Exhibit A. This is classic deflection language. Alistair tried to interject a few times. Monica, this feels like an interrogation, he said early on, his voice soft and bewildered. I cut him off without missing a beat. We need to be objective about this, Alistair. Let's not let feelings cloud the facts. Later, he tried to defend his friend, his voice strained with a loyalty I was actively trying to incinerate. Julian wouldn't lie to me. There must be a misunderstanding, he started. I clicked to the next slide, which showed a financial report I'd paid a freelancer in Europe to pull on the parent company. It showed mounting debts and two previous, smaller projects that had gone bankrupt. The data suggests otherwise, I said, not even looking at him, my eyes fixed on the damning numbers on the screen. The entire time I was in my element, I was logical, I was prepared, I was right, and I was destroying him. I watched his posture change. He went from leaning forward, trying to engage, to slumping back in his chair as if his spine had dissolved. His coffee grew cold on the table. The light in his eyes, the one that had been so bright when he talked about our future in Portugal, dimmed with every slide I presented, until it was just a dull, vacant glaze. By the time I reached my final slide, a summary of risks with a recommendation to immediately halt all further investment and contact legal counsel, he was utterly silent. His face was pale, unreadable. He just stared at the screen, then at me. So, I said, closing my laptop with a definitive snap, a note of finality, of triumph, was in my voice. Any questions? He didn't have any. He just sat there in the wreckage of his dream, and I, its proud demolitions expert, mistook his stunned, hollow silence for agreement. I had won. The facts were on my side, the logic was unassailable. Alistair, after a long, crushing silence that seemed to absorb all the sound in the room, just nodded slowly and whispered, "You're right." That was it. Those were the three words I had been fighting to hear for 2 weeks. I felt a surge of vindication, a righteous sense of relief so potent it almost made me dizzy. I had steered Team Miller away from the iceberg. I was the hero of this story. He got up from the table, his movements stiff and slow like an old man's, walked into his study and shut the door. I assumed he needed some time to process the disappointment, to mourn the loss of his dream and the betrayal of his friend. I gave him his space. I even felt a bit magnanimous in my victory, deciding I wouldn't say "I told you so." I'd let the facts speak for themselves. The days that followed were strange. The house was quiet, but it wasn't a peaceful quiet. It was a tense, brittle silence, the kind where you're afraid the sound of a fork hitting a plate will shatter the air. Alistair was polite. Incredibly, unnervingly polite. He'd say good morning, and did you need anything from the store? But it was the kind of civility you'd show a stranger you were stuck in an elevator with. The warmth, the easy intimacy that had defined our marriage was gone. He stopped calling me Moan. He stopped touching the small of my back when he passed me in the hallway. We were two ghosts sharing a house, orbiting each other in carefully prescribed paths to avoid collision. I told myself it was just him being heard about the project and his friend. I thought he'd get over it, he just needed time. A week after my presentation, a calendar invitation popped up in my email. It was from him. The subject line was stark. Discussion about our future. My stomach clenched. This felt corporate, procedural. We met at the same dining room table, the scene of my triumph. This time there was no laptop. Just him, me, and a manila folder he placed squarely between us. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse me of anything. He spoke with a calm, detached clarity that was far more terrifying than any fight we'd ever had. "Monica," he began, his eyes meeting mine without any of their usual softness. "You were right about the investment. You probably saved us from a huge mistake. And I thank you for that." I started to feel a flicker of hope, a sense that we were about to turn a corner, but he extinguished it with his next words. "But to be right, you had to make me wrong. You didn't come to me as a partner, you came to me as an opponent. For 2 weeks, you built a case against me, and then you prosecuted it. I wasn't your teammate, I was your adversary in our own home." He slid the folder across the table. Inside were neatly printed documents. A list of his personal belongings, a proposed schedule for him to move them out, a printout of a bank statement showing he'd transferred exactly half our joint savings into a new, personal account. It was a severance package. He was dissolving our team. "I don't need a financial advisor, Monica. I need a partner. I need someone who's in my corner, even when I'm being a fool. And I can't live with someone who needs to win against me more than she needs to be with me. The team is disbanded." And now here I am, sitting alone in the quiet, cavernous house at the same dining room table where I so proudly presented my findings. The PowerPoint file is still on my desktop, a little digital monument to my victory. I click on it sometimes just to stare at the neatness of it all, the clean lines of the graphs, the irrefutable logic. It's like a perfect, sterile blueprint for a life I no longer have. Alistair is gone. His brother is helping him move the last of his things out tomorrow. The victory feels hollow. Sickening, even. My unassailable logic and my beautiful color-coded charts are cold comfort in an empty bed that feels impossibly large. This morning, an email from Julian popped into my inbox. A short, awkward, deeply apologetic message. He said the deal with the Luxembourg firm had just collapsed. The environmental permits were officially denied and the investors were pulling out. There was talk of legal action. He admitted he'd been overly optimistic, blinded by the potential, and had let his excitement get the better of him. He ended it with a line that felt like a punch to the gut. "You were right to be skeptical, Monica. You have a good head on your shoulders. Alistair is lucky to have you." I stared at the words, "lucky to have you," until they blurred into meaningless shapes on the screen. I was right. Julian said I was right. The world said I was right. And I have never felt more wrong, more utterly and devastatingly incorrect in my entire life. Just an hour ago, I was cleaning out our shared email account, trying to untangle the digital threads of our decade together, when I found something in the spam folder. It was an email from a boutique travel agency dated a month ago, a booking confirmation followed by a cancellation notice from last week. Alistair had booked a surprise trip for us. 2 weeks in a small, private villa in Tuscany, non-refundable for the end of this month. It was meant to be a celebration, I realize now. A celebration for finalizing the Portugal deal, for taking the big leap together. The cancellation email was timestamped 8:15 a.m., the Sunday morning after my Saturday presentation. He must have done it as soon as he woke up. I'm looking at the picture in the email now. A rustic stone farmhouse covered in ivy, a field of sunflowers stretching to the horizon, two wine glasses on a small wooden table catching the golden light of sunset. It's the kind of impractical, romantic, wildly optimistic thing he would do. The kind of thing I fell in love with. He wasn't just investing in a property. He was investing in us, in our joy, in the story we were writing. And in my obsessive quest to win, to prove I was the smart one, I didn't just kill the deal. I killed the dreamer. I won the argument. I have the facts, the evidence, and this crushing, perfect, lonely correctness as my prize. I saved our money, but I lost everything that made it worth having.